The Booker Prize-winning writer Ian McEwan has long argued for the need to stand up for Western values in the face of such extremism. On his website, he writes, "Murderous and self-sanctifying radical Islam has become a global attractor for psychopaths. The slaughter in Paris is a tragedy for the open society." So what is to be done now? Stephen Smith spoke to Ian McEwan today. He began by asking him where he was when he heard about the attack.
I was here working. I got a phone call from my wife. Her voice was very shaky. She was in London. At first I thought something had happened, bad to our family. I was really, really shocked. But a familiar, sickening feeling that took me right back to the days of the Rushdie fatwa. But gunning people down is like throwing a bomb. The repercussions in private lives, the tragedies in private lives, ricochet outwards into areas that we know nothing about. I mean, these were young men and women of I associate them with the sort of 68ers, the 68ers generation, the best side of that, not the Maoists, but the situationists, as it were, full of a wonderful kind of life-enhancing mischief about them.
What's striking about this, apart from anything else, is that in this case journalists, cartoonists find themselves on the front line in effect.
Journalists, cartoonists, all they do is hold pens and pencils, and the people who massacred them were holding guns. That's a disequilibrium that we must loathe. I know that we enter immediately into the territory of has this got something to do with Islam, or has it got absolutely nothing to do with Islam? Well, for sure, the first thing to say is the overwhelming majority of Muslims find this utterly repugnant. But at the same time, of course, it has its roots. It's like the ugly cousin third time removed from Islam, but still the Sharia is there, notions of blasphemy and apostasy are there. The yearning for the caliphate, etc. But I think that the distance, I think this has really marked out for many Muslims a real distance from what they cherish and what they loathe.
Is it difficult to talk about this without this spectre of so-called Islamophobia rising up? Is it difficult to articulate these points without people misunderstanding, willfully or otherwise?
I remember back in the 7 or 8 years ago, if I raised some objection to radical Islam, there was a quick temptation, especially in sections of the left, to give you a hard time. I think that moment has passed, really. I think we're now in a much more honest moment with this. This really is, a very, very dark-hearted cult. You can summon up reasons: a colonial past, the lack of integration of Muslims into Western societies, and is it our fault? But that does not cause you to go and slaughter children in their playgrounds or abduct 200 schoolgirls, as Boko Haram did, or all the other outrages that have really been piling up lately, almost weekly, in the press.
From what you say, this is a crucial moment, and perhaps there are grounds for hope, but what do you think?
I think we're bound to have now a conversation about free speech. This is the freedom that underpins all the other freedoms we have. Every other freedom that we now take for granted, sexual equality, or of sexual preference, of due process, of assembly, of universal franchise, whatever you name, had to be written and talked into existence. And there had to be a measure of freedom of speech and writing in order to do that. And I think we need to have a conversation, an inclusive conversation, about apostasy and about blasphemy too. It should be a non-violent, civilized exchange. But we've got to expand this conversation because, and I think also we could really bring this right into the national curriculum in schools. We need to be able to teach everyone just how important freedom of speech is, and how in that freedom there is mockery, satire, scholarly analysis. It's going to be difficult, but talking and writing is all we've got. Slaughtering each other is going to bring us to the very gates of hell.